T.I., you gotta tell that what you do to
DJ Akademiks is commenting on T.I. and 50 Cent beef, and he's throwing bombshells non-stop. What began as a routine disagreement is now evolving into a documentary series that reveals T.Y.'s personal secrets. You are aware of the outcome of 50's previous attempt at this. Things are getting really hot. Now, let's get started. How a long-standing animosity resurfaced. Alright, so before we even discuss the current state of affairs, the diss tracks, the documentary threats, the dead mama bars, and Akademiks in full commentator mode dissecting every moment of this as if he's calling a championship fight, you should kill any preconceived notions you may have about it, because this feud isn't brand new. This isn't something that appeared out of thin air after someone made a clever comment on a program. No, family, this thing has roots. Old ones, deep ones. The kind of roots that have been in the ground for almost 2 decades, waiting for the ideal opportunity to break through the concrete. Additionally, you are only viewing the highlight reel and missing the entire film if you are ignorant of the actual history. We're going all the way back to the time when these two men were at their most dangerous. Now, let's run it. The conflict between T.Y. and 50 Cent is a long simmering, nearly 2-decade-old rap feud. Furthermore, it doesn't stem from a single instance of someone saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. No, this was constructed gradually, layer by layer, out of legal claims, subtle shade, regional pride, and 2 of the most inflated egos in rap history. They were both adamant that they were the best, and neither of them was prepared to give way to the other. Queens versus Atlanta. In the mid-2000s, the man who literally rewrote the rules for running hip-hop faced off against the self-described King of the South. These two didn't have to be on opposing sides in theory. In actuality, they were bound to run into each other from the beginning. There was never an if. There was always a time. It begins in 2007. T.I. recently released his 4th studio album, King. He is at the peak of his game with the project that essentially had him sticking a flag in the ground and telling the entire rap game, "This my throne. Step to it." Platinum plaques, Grammy nominations, the kind of cultural affection that most rappers would sell their souls for. 50 Cent then chooses to speak up during an interview with Angie Martinez on Hot 97. He doesn't mention Tip's name. He's cunning about it. Yes, in these early conversations, 50 is always cunning, but he rejected claims of a single ruler, asking, "How are you going to be the king? Who makes that decision?" The fans make that decision. You cannot simply claim to be the king. Even with its limitations in 2007, the hip-hop internet saw that as a direct challenge to Tip. T.I. clocked it as well. He was by no means slow, nor was he deaf. However, that was really a warm-up, a small jab prior to the actual combo. The real escalation occurred in 2008 and was contained in the song "You So Tough" by G-Unit. T.I., having recently experienced a significant amount of feeding time, silencers, machine guns, a case that could have kept him in prison for 10 years. He left after a year, and 50 Cent, who had built his entire brand on maintaining street credibility, he jumped on that bandwagon and essentially put the figures on display by pointing out that they didn't add up for someone who wasn't assisting the federal government. Like a stain on a white t-shirt that isn't ever totally coming out. The snitch narrative, the claim that Tip collaborated with federal authorities to obtain that sweet deal, took root in hip-hop mythology at that very moment, and would follow T.Y. for the following 18 years. Right now, T.Y. is not the kind of man who would simply consume that and move on. In 2010, he and his spouse, Tiny, were charged with marijuana, pills, and T.I. 50 returned to the same wound as if it had never healed. Even after receiving an additional 11 months for a parole violation, he publicly questioned why Tiny wasn't held accountable for the accusations. T.I. returned with a succinct, straightforward, and personal answer that resulted in a Vibe cover story in which he drew a firm line around his circumstances and labeled that type of thinking precisely what it was. 50 responded by doing the arithmetic on Twitter. The two eventually used a mutual plug to squash it. Vibe was informed by 50 that it was dead. It seemed to be for a long minute. Go ahead, 10 years. The universe is imprisoned within the crib. The culture is dominated by Versus, a battle format created by Timbaland and Swizz Beatz. Artists are using Instagram Live to go hit for hit. catalog against catalog, and let the music decide the outcome. It's the most entertaining pandemic the internet has ever seen. And T.I., who never misses a chance to make a statement, decides he wants to compete against 50 Cent. On July 6, 2020, 50 Cent's 45th birthday, T.I. appeared on Instagram Live and posted the challenge, 20 songs. Let's see what you have. He also mentioned the old Kanye West versus 50 chart fight, which 50 notoriously lost and cited as the reason he withdrew from the public eye. It was an invitation masquerading as a flex. Come on out, dude. Show the public. 50 was not at all on board. In an interview, he bodied the entire Versus format and clowned the whole thing in public, claiming that, as the world opened up again, everything ceased to make sense. There was no conflict, no smoke, just 50 being 50, unaffected by the commotion or his own chronology. However, Tip persisted in bringing it up like a bill that needed to be paid on the radio, in interviews, and at events. Additionally, according to T.Y. speaking on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast in February 2026, he claimed that although the two had made a covert agreement in Los Angeles when they were out there selling shows together, 50 returned and acted foolishly in front of the cameras. It is up to those two guys to decide if that is factual or historical revisionism. This is what we are certain of. The unanswered invitation from Versus turned into a sore spot under T.Y.'s skin that never completely healed, and that splinter turned into an entire detonator in February 2026. The entire incident occurred in February 2026, during the introduction of T.Y.'s Kill the King. T.I. was featured on the panel of Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson on the Nightcap podcast on February 6th, declared in public that he had been attempting to obtain 50 for Versus, but that 50 was based on the man's dodging smoke behavior. When 50 Cent heard that, yet he didn't release a song in response. He didn't enter the booth. Receipts, old Crime Stoppers footage, and court evidence from a 2006 murder case involving one of T.I.'s associates were all displayed by him, along with the phrase, "King Rat." "It was up, I see," T.I. fired back, claiming to have 50's documents as proof that only one of them was a real rat. After the back and forth continued, 50 shared an unfavorable picture of Tiny on Instagram on February 22nd. According to his account, he was merely informing T.Y. without being disrespectful, to leave him alone and refrain from mentioning his name. However, that's not how the internet reads it. They interpreted it as a direct jab at King Harris, T.Y.'s son and wife. He didn't wait for an explanation. The soil was burnt by King Harris, and he made the conversation as unvarnished and intimate as possible by bringing 50's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, who died in a house fire. 50 responded with memes, king-like parallels to Pepe the Frog, and the kind of troll behavior that the internet has come to anticipate from Curtis Jackson when he decides he's not taking things seriously. Beyoncé's mother, Tina Knowles, was also embroiled in the battle when she reposted her support for Tiny and attracted 50's notice. Then, as if it were a free-for-all, the music began to plummet. T.I. arrived with track after track. The entire family became interested. King Harris appeared in a video sporting a t-shirt featuring Sabrina Jackson's likeness. The motion was publicly co-signed by Rick Ross. Domani connected with Ms. Jackson. Nothing is left to the imagination, including the Outkast sample and the burning house artwork. The Harris family as a whole turned this into a well-planned publicity campaign. It was no longer just beef. It was a campaign. DJ Akademiks was already honing his pen while watching all of this unfold in real time behind his streaming setup. He would be the one calling every play, every audible, and every dirty hit if this was going to be the first significant hip-hop feud of 2026. In this perspective, it is important to discuss DJ Akademiks' true identity. Livingston Allen, also known as Akademiks, did not initiate this conflict and has not personally disparaged any guy. He's the hip-hop media personality whose TikToks, YouTube responses, Instagram videos, and daily feeds have made the entire scenario seem like a PPV event. He provides play-by-play commentary on every diss track, every Instagram post, every escalation, scoring rounds, strategy advice, and context for casual fans who might not understand the true meaning behind the lines. In February 2026, his coverage began to take off, and his first big picture move was to draw a parallel between Drake and Kendrick Lamar.
So, my T.I. He's reacting to 50 Cent finally reacting to him.
Which every hip-hop fan had felt in their chest but was unable to put into words. I'm finally responding to 50 Cent because that's how this smells, family. You have a man who was a bully for years, who destroyed careers, turned names into jokes, and transformed Ja Rule into a term that people use to describe an L. The internet is now curious to see if the same man can handle the pressure when it resurfaces. They are interested in seeing if the king is overthrown. The energy is that. And Akademiks, who saw firsthand how Drake versus Kendrick affected his platform, locked into that frame right away and didn't let it go. Akademiks analyzes the marketing machine, the strategy, and the music. This is when Akademiks begins to demonstrate why he is currently one of the most astute pundits working in the hip-hop industry, because Akademiks was taking a much more deliberate approach. Whereas everyone else on the internet was busy choosing sides and riding with tip or fifth, he was reading the entire chessboard, keeping track of both the movements and their motivations. Additionally, he was posing a query that the majority of viewers of the drama weren't even considering. Is this really beef? Or is this the best music release we've seen in a long time? And everyone was tricked into believing it was something else? Akademiks introduced his audience to a viewpoint that had been circulating on threads that were first shared by Karen Civil, a marketing expert who had worked closely with Nipsey Hussle and Lil Wayne. Civil has actual industry connections and a track record of spotting problems before they become serious. This is how Karen described the entire scenario. T.I. had attempted, some months before any of this 50 thing began, to entice Lil Wayne into a fight with Versus. Wayne gave him nothing and iced him. Thus, T.I. changed course and attempted the same play on 50. Additionally, even though 50 didn't say anything disparaging in the caption of that picture of Tiny, T.Y. and the entire Harris family responded to it as if it were a declaration of war, launching what Karen referred to as a music diss rollout campaign. To make it more impactful, they dressed up in beef.
It's about having emotional intelligence to see a marketing role.
Furthermore, Akademiks did not object to that reading. In fact, he confirmed a great deal of it. On February 26th, he made a statement on his Kick broadcast that went much further. He simply thought it was strange that T.I., a man of T.Y.'s caliber and legacy, shouldn't have to be profiting from that type of energy. So, he continued to release music directed at someone who was openly denigrating his wife and his manhood. He claimed that the Versus debate ought to have ended by now. A man who has been making disparaging remarks about your family is not someone you want to share a platform with. Your pride is at stake.
I literally can't tell if these are all at 50.
I really don't know if and yet T.I. continued to release song after song. The children also began to arrive. According to reports, 50 Cent personally turned up the music's level and exclaimed that T.I. was merely attempting to push records and understood well what he was doing. And the evidence supported that. Not a cap. Kill the King experienced a significant, quantifiable increase in streaming and sales that T.Y.'s previous efforts by themselves had not been producing. Whether it was real or not, the beef was doing its job. The numbers are truthful. However, this is the aspect of Akademiks' comments that sets him apart from all other cap-in-hand bloggers and reaction channels that use the same material. He repeatedly returned to a very direct and honest criticism of the music itself. And when he said that, he wasn't disrespecting T.I.'s legacy. He was telling the truth. He was keeping it a secret.
T.I. clearly raps better than the Sun, but in a diss song, it's about disrespect.
The entire diagnosis is included in that one statement. T.I. is tackling these diss songs in the same manner that a craftsman tackles a project. Methodically and precisely, like someone who still has a strong desire to be recognized as a lyricist, a wordsmith, and an artist with a message. He's pulled out his thesaurus. He's constructing bars, and that would be impressive in any other situation. However, in the context of a diss track, particularly in 2026. The internet has the attention span of a goldfish and requires the most ridiculous moment before moving on in 30 seconds. Akademiks was correct too. Consider what caused the internet to go crazy during Drake versus Kendrick Lamar.
The hottest diss songs is the most disrespectful. That's the hottest bar.
It wasn't the most intricate verse in terms of technique. Certified Lover Boy. The phrase certified PDF file caused people to halt their scrolling, go back 3 times.
T.I., you gotta tell that nigga what you do to him.
Put an end to your rapping as if you were trying to protect a Nike agreement. The moment when someone says something that cannot be retracted is what the viewers are looking for. What brings the night to a close? And up till T.I. He's not truly winning the internet if he gives them that moment, even if he is the room's superior rapper in theory. King Harris, T.Y.'s kid, was the one who was truly winning the internet, according to AK. Too refined to express. He was using the kind of careless, unfiltered haymakers that genuinely cause people to stop reading and begin sharing. T.I. King was going straight for the 50s jugular with bars that sounded truly menacing, while he was out there rapping about lineage, traumatize, and principle.
Hey, yo, King, when you hear this, don't get a big head, bro. Pause.
And when you sit with that dynamic, there's something quite fascinating about it. The legend, T.I., who had everything to prove, now was being cautious, safeguarding his reputation, and maintaining the dignity of his prisons. His son was taking the kind of swings that really made a difference because he had nothing to lose, no brand contract to worry about, and no reputation to manage. And a consensus began to emerge on social media that the beef had given Kill the King a boost that no amount of traditional promotion could have produced on its own. And much of the focus was being drawn to the family spectacle rather than just T.I.'s solo bars. The tale revolved around the entire Harris crew. 50 Cent, on the other hand, was using a whole different frequency. Even as Akademiks congratulated T.I.'s family on winning the rap war, he continued to bring up 50's strategic stance and emphasize how almost watertight it was, while making sure everyone was aware of his NAACP Image Award wins for Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, his Fightland production, and the Power Origins theme song with Leon Thomas. 50 was publicly downplaying the whole rap angle by posting, "I'll take these L's, LOL GLG." This was done without jeopardizing any streaming numbers. That's the 2026 equivalent of truly winning a beef. You don't visit every pub. You deny the other man the respect of a comprehensive musical answer that may be graded, ranked, and included in a Who Won survey. You are a troll. Memes are dropped by you. More than anything you could ever rap over a beat, you allowed your TV empire to speak. When you do say something with musical intent,
50 was just posting memes, and I ain't gonna lie.
and it's usually a theme song for a show for which you already receive compensation, rather than a standalone diss track that can be compared to everything else in your library. When you don't participate in the competition, there isn't a scoreboard. In the latter phases of the Kendrick scenario, Akademiks likened 50 to Drake, pointing out that once you've been the bully long enough, the audience stops feeling sorry for you and starts applauding whoever is throwing the punches. The main issue with that 50 was that guy had successfully run over so many people for so long that people were really thrilled to see someone retaliate. However, he continued to emphasize that 50's main cheat code in this specific scenario was that he was devilish and didn't care about the rap scores or the music rounds. The coldest move in the entire early stage of this feud was 50 Cent's post and delete, in which he mentioned going silent prior to the release of the Diddy documentary, and reminded everyone of what transpired after that silence. The song wasn't a diss track. Technically, it wasn't even offensive. It served as a reminder. When this man decides to stop messing around and start playing for keeps, it serves as a reminder of what he is capable of. And that recall was accompanied by a very particular threat that altered the room's temperature. By early March 2026, 50 Cent had gone from hinting at the creation of a Netflix-style documentary called Surviving T1 to outright confirming it. And Tiny. The topic of discussion was the growing number of civil accusations of sexual assault against T1 and Tiny since 2021. It's serious allegations made by several women, which the pair has constantly and fully rejected. 50 also made the comparison clear. He wasn't trying to be subtle. He was ensuring that T.I. was aware of his executive-produced Netflix series on Diddy. which had exploded in popularity and viewership.
And 50 says, remember how quiet I got before the Diddy doc? Dame thought I wasn't coming.
Realized he was an expert at running that same play. T.I. retaliate right away. He spoke with his chest. We can go bar for bar, hit for hit, or doc for doc. Spoke as if he weren't shaken. However, DJ Akademiks had a very different interpretation of what the documentary threat actually meant. By this point, he had converted every development in this dispute into real-time entertainment, and that's precisely where Part 3 will take us. The accusations and the documentary threat. Okay, hip-hop fans are capable of processing everything we've discussed thus far, including the memes, the diss tracks, the family getting involved, King Harris putting 50's late mother on a t-shirt, and Damani flipping Outkast samples. There is a genre for beef. Even when it acts as though it doesn't, it has rules. You may debate it, score it, turn it into a playlist, and discuss it on the way to work. However, in early March 2026, 50 Cent dragged this scenario into an area where the rules don't apply, where there isn't a scoreboard, and the penalties aren't limited to who sounds harder on a song. And Akademiks was among the first to proclaim on camera, "We ain't just doing entertainment anymore," by delivering it to his audience unedited. This simply evolved into something else. Let's be precise about what the surviving T.I. You must get this before you can comprehend why Akademiks responded as he did, which is what the tiny documentary threat is driving at. T.I. was the target of many civil accusations of drugging and sexual assault beginning in 2021, and Tiny from several women. There have been allegations of rape, coercion, and misbehavior at hotels and parties in several states between 2005 and the 2010s. T.I. and Tiny has rejected each and every one of them. They have referred to it as extortion and a propaganda effort. Numerous lawsuits have been dismissed, and when her case was dismissed, at least one accuser had to pay legal fees. However, the legal battle is far from over. The trial date for a civil lawsuit filed in 2024 by Jane Doe, an Air Force veteran, alleging an incident in Los Angeles in 2005, is still set for June 2026. In 2021, the LAPD looked into at least one case, but the statute of limitations prevented them from filing criminal charges. Although there are no criminal convictions, 50 Cent is specifically focusing on the ongoing civil proceedings. He didn't say that in a whisper. He uploaded it, then removed it, but screenshots of it were already available online. Additionally, the message, "I hope this doesn't mess up your promo tour," was a clear reference to the Diddy documentary approach. Exposure-induced pressure. When Akademiks went live, he was direct. T.I. You'd better get a lawyer and quit rapping. He also hinted that they could have to file a lawsuit against 50 because a documentary can affect both public opinion and legal positioning if it reaches a large audience and begins making accusations, even if they are unverified. Let's now discuss the fight on paperwork. 50 Cent has been calling T1 a rat and suggesting that his short sentence resulted from cooperation by sharing old Crime Stoppers tapes of him along with court evidence from a 2006 case. That is the accusation. However, T.I. has disputed that for years, even going so far as to publicly reveal his federal inmate number and challenge anyone to identify a person he allegedly imprisoned. Nobody has ever done so.
They're gonna ask you about your 20 sexual assault cases. I hope this doesn't mess up your promo tour.
He is not listed as a cooperating witness in any government records. Turn it over. Ty and King Harris assert that they possess documents on 50, purportedly related to the Jimmy Henchman case. However, such documents were found to be fraudulent in 2019. There is no concrete proof that 50 is assisting the authorities. The bottom line? Instead of genuine proof, both parties are relying on the concept of paperwork. Furthermore, perception evolves more quickly than reality in hip-hop disputes. Akademiks continues to refer to 50 as diabolical, not because he is correct, but rather because he knows how to employ narratives as weapons without requiring evidence. To cause harm, the documentary doesn't even need to be released. Just the threat is sufficient. Each interview, T.I. does that question come with it now? And that's where the true distinction is. T.I. is battling for his legacy, his record, his persona, and his standing as a leader and father.
Like, yo, T.I., let me give you some advice. You ain't see what Kendrick did? Just start lying.
Every action counts. 50 Cent? He has nothing to fight for. He already has a strong enterprise, TV series, commercial transactions, and media impact. He can take in everything without losing anything, including internet jokes, family photos, and diss recordings. Additionally, the conclusion typically favors one side.
You making a diss song in 2026? This ain't back in 2004 where you pop.
When one man has everything to defend and the other has nothing to lose. At one time, Akademiks had a 4-0 advantage based on leverage rather than music. Since Spotify isn't scoring this, public opinion is being used to score it. T.I. might have prevailed in the rap rounds. However, 50 isn't engaged in a rap competition. He's engaging in a completely separate game, and that game is still going on right now.